Hello everyone, we continue with labor economics, chapter 2. This is labor supply chapter and part 21. In this part, we'll talk about added worker effect and discouraged worker effect. Okay, so in the previous part, we started talking about labor supply over the business cycle, and we said that labor supply will respond to changes in opportunities over one's life cycle. So wages go up, then your hours of work will go up, and vice versa. Okay, labor supply also responds to the economic opportunities that are induced by business cycles. What does it mean? Business cycles are periods where there's a recession, GDP is declining, or where there's an economic boom when the GDP is increasing. GDP is gross domestic product of a country. All the goods and services produced in a year in a country, domestic. Okay, so business cycles are economic booms or recessions, right? So the best way to understand how labor supply may respond to a business cycle is to look at an example, right? Meanwhile, in a parallel universe, I don't know, a recession is going on. Let's say initially Janet is a manager of a accounting company, married. Okay, this is extra. She's married to a homemaker, Jason. Jason is a stay-home puppy, fur baby dad. Okay, and let's say there's a recession. Janet is unemployed due to recession. Okay. So what happens right now is really important. She gives up looking for a job and drops out of labor market permanently. Okay. Then Jason must enter job market to make up for the lost income. So they're kind of changing their roles. So added worker effect is what Jason is adding to the economy. Jason, the secondary worker, who was initially out of labor force, are affected because the main breadwinners are unemployed and or they're facing a wage cut. Secondary worker may choose to enter the labor force, so they're increasing the number of people in the labor force. So labor force participation rate of secondary workers, in other words, the added worker effect, is what we say counter-cyclical. Okay, or acyclical. This is really important. I'm going to put a star. So what does it mean? Counter-cyclical or acyclical to GDP means labor force participation of secondary worker moves in the opposite direction as the GDP. So counter-cyclical or acyclical. So GDP drops, right? GDP drops. They are entering the labor force participation rate. So they're moving. This is going down. This is going up. They are going to different opposite directions. We call them counter-cyclical or acyclical. Cyclical means the business cycle, right? Let's talk about discouraged worker effect. This is Janet's situation. Janet, unemployed, and she finds it very difficult to find a job. So these are discouraged people who give up looking for a job. So they give up searching. Discouraged workers exit the labor force during bad times. So GDP drops. GDP, gross domestic product, drops. Labor force participation rate of discouraged workers will go down. So it moves together with the GDP. GDP goes down, they're less likely to be in the market. GDP goes up, they're more likely to enter the market. So it moves in the same direction, all right? Discouraged workers exit the labor force during bad times. So we say that labor force participation rate of discouraged workers is pro-cyclical. Pro-cyclical means it moves in the same direction as GDP. Okay, so labor force participation rate participation rate of added workers is counter-cyclical, moves in the opposite direction of GDP. Labor force participation rate of discouraged workers is pro-cyclical, moves in the direction. So again, labor force participation rate of secondary workers, added worker effect, is going to move opposite direction, same direction here. All right, I repeated too many times. Discouraged worker effect dominates the added worker effect, especially during recessions. So GDP drops, right? Secondary worker effect says that labor force participation of rate of secondary workers, added workers go up, but discouraged worker effect dominates. Therefore, during recessions, labor force participation rate will go down. All right, so in summary, labor force participation rate is pro-cyclical. That means GDP goes down, you're in recession. It needs to go down by more than 2 quarters. Labor force participation rate is going to go down too. All right. Let's talk about work attachment of older workers. We're talking about people who are 65 and older and their retirement. Here's a fact. Lifetime income is higher the longer a worker puts off retirement. So if you go ahead and retire 70 versus 50, you're going to have lots of more lifetime income if you retired at 70. So this is labor force participation rate for men 65 years of age and older. In 1900s, it was about 63.1%, goes down to 45.8%, 2017%, 2019 about 22%. So it kind of went back up due to harder times. So why is the labor force participation rate for men has been declining? Okay. Why isn't grandpa pulling his weight, said the evil grandchild. I mean, you're 65 plus, right? It's kind of like time to maybe enter the next portion of your life. All right, is it deteriorating health? All right, so are were people healthier back in the day? No. Life expectancy of the people who age 50 rose from 22 to 29.1 years between 1939 and 2007. That means if you made it to 50, right? On an average, you made it to 72 in 1939. Now, if you made it to 50, people are on an average making to 79.1 as of 2007. So no. Second, is it the generous pension benefits and private pension programs? Okay. So this could be the reason. Coverage of pension plans, Social Security increased from 26% to 66% in 1990s. Okay. So yes, an increase in the pension benefits reduces the price of retirement, increase the demand for leisure at the older ages. Okay. So in next part, we're actually going to expand on this and we're going to talk about Social Security benefits and Social Security disability program.